Managing SOLIDWORKS files can be a challenge if you're not familiar with the proper procedures for moving, renaming, replacing, and performing other common file management tasks. Most users of SOLIDWORKS quickly learn about the relationships between part, assembly, and drawing files. We all come to realize that assemblies and drawings have built-in pointers that allow these documents to find their relevant parts. If these built-in pointers are not sound, your assemblies and drawings are rendered useless. Simply put, to avoid file management problems, your task as a SOLIDWORKS user is to make sure you preserve the integrity of the built-in pointers. You have to make sure that no matter what you do, whether you're renaming a file, copying a file, creating a new revision of a file, and so on, your assemblies and drawings must be able to find their correct parts. In this lesson, I'd like to go through some of the ways that we users manage to break pointers. We'll begin with the changing of names. Here, I have an assembly with 3 components: Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. What I'd like to do is change the name of Part 3 to Part 3A. To do this, I'll close the assembly and view the same files in Windows Explorer. I'll right-click on Part 3 and select Rename. I'll add the letter A to the end, and I'm done. Now back in SOLIDWORKS, I'll reopen the assembly, and of course, we have a problem. What happened here is that this assembly has a pointer looking for Part 3. Since Part 3 no longer exists, the pointer is now broken. A similar procedure that leads to a broken pointer is to move a file using Windows Explorer. In Windows Explorer, I'll cut and paste Part 2 into a new directory. I'll call it Target Folder 1. Now that I've done this, I'll return to SOLIDWORKS and once again open Assembly 1. Now the assembly reports a problem in finding Part 2 and Part 3, so I have 2 broken pointers. Let's look now at making a copy of a file, and this is typically done when attempting to create a revision of a part. In Windows Explorer, I'll create a new folder called Target Folder 2. I'll copy Part 1 and paste it into the new target folder. Next, I'll make a simple change by adding a rectangular cut through the center. I'll save the file and close it. Now I'll open Assembly 1 again. The pointer to Part 2 is still broken, as is the pointer to Part 3. And as you can see, Part 1 is still the original version, not the one I just created with the cut in it. While the Part 1 pointer is still valid, it's pointing at the wrong file. Now these are simple examples of how assemblies can either lose their referenced parts, or simply point at the wrong ones. Of course, since I'm thoroughly familiar with what I've done in this example, I can simply click Browse when opening the assembly to find the correct files and essentially repair the broken pointers. I can even change the Part 1 pointer to look at the correct modified file. However, in many cases you won't be very familiar with the assembly. It could be that you haven't worked on the assembly in a long time, or maybe someone else has built the assembly and then turned it over to you. In such cases, browsing for replacement parts can lead to more trouble. What if you browse and select the wrong part? Maybe one that's on your local disk instead of the network directory, or even an older revision of the same component. In the next few lessons, we'll take a look at the proper methods for renaming, copying, and moving SOLIDWORKS files while ensuring the integrity of the built-in pointers is preserved.